Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, welcome to a new episode of the Qur'an and Science. I'm your host, Tamer Momtaz, and welcoming our dear professor, Dr. Zaghloul Al Nagar, head of Committee on Scientific Facts in the Glorious Qur'an, Supreme Council on Islamic Affairs, and welcoming our dear guests, Brother Mustafa and Brother Fuad. In this episode, we're going to talk about the origin of water on earth. But first, we'll hear the ayah, the verse that deals with our topic from Surah An-Nazi'at, verse number 30 and 31.
والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها.
And after that, Allah has expanded the earth through volcanic activity. He has pushed out of it its water and pasture.
Professor Zaghloul, water on our land, where did it come from?
I begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, the creator of the universe and of everything in it, the most gracious, most compassionate, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the only Lord of the universe without parallels, partners, or similitudes. And I seek his blessings on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the seal of that long chain of messengers and prophets from God to man for the guidance of man. And I dare say that the problem of the origin of water on earth was highly debated for quite a long time, because our earth is the richest planet we know of in water. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed the earth by 1,400 million cubic kilometers of water. 1,400 million cubic kilometers of water. And scientists have always wondered where did this huge quantity of water has come from. Where did it come from? Many theories have been put forward to explain that the origin of water on earth. And the most widely accepted theory was that this water came through the impact of comets with the earth, because the comets are mainly composed of a small piece of rock surrounded by a huge quantity of ice and one or two long tails of gases that come into the solar system once every few years. They said the only obvious source for water on Earth are some of these comets must have hit the Earth and the ice did melt and the water was formed. But this was found to be rather illogical, because we could not record any event where a comet did collide with the Earth.
This research was when, Professor?
When?
The research, when was that?
Well, it took quite a long time, really, because the pondering about the origin of water on Earth has taken quite a long time from man. Throughout history, man was wondering where did this huge quantity of water has come from. Only towards the end of the 20th century, an elaborated study of volcanoes and volcanic eruptions under the title of volcanology, the science of volcanoes, scientists came to realize that the greatest and the most abundant thing that emanates from volcanic vents is water vapor. With a simple calculation, how many vents we have on the surface of our globe, the periodicity of these vents to erupt, how many years does each of these vents erupt, how long does it take for a cycle to bring a volcano into eruption again, and the average quantity of water vapor that comes out from each vent. They came to more or less the same amount of water we know of on land. simply because 70% or even more of what comes out of these volcanic vents is water vapor. So only towards the end of the 20th century, scientists came to realize that this huge quantity of water, which Allah has bestowed on us and on the earth, actually came from within the earth, from the zone of weakness, the zone of semi-molten material, under the outer rocky layer of the earth. As the volcanoes erupt, they bring this water vapor with it.
But doctor, we know that before water is formed, there has to be two elements of hydrogen and one of oxygen.
Yes,
is it formed in this manner in the earth by the combining of these elements?
because you see, most of the known elements are in the earth actually.
Okay.
And it is the power of the Creator to join them in the manner He likes. And to imagine that water is found in the zone of weakness of the earth at temperatures that exceed 1000 degrees centigrade and under immense pressure is something really one can not visualize, one cannot really see. So,
But Professor, where did it condense? Because you say over 1000 degrees, so this vapor is steam.
Steam, of course, but under pressure, it cannot escape.
Oh.
It is there. Once it gets a release of that pressure, it comes out.
And where does it condense?
It is condensed in the zone of weakness.
Okay.
In the zone of weakness, under the outer rocky layer of the earth.
So it changes from the vapor form to the liquid
To
form.
the liquid form. Actually, it comes as vapor. It rises up in the atmosphere. It finds a cool zone in the upper zones of the lower atmosphere. It condenses and comes back as rain. So it has been scientifically established that all the water on the surface of our planet was actually emanated from within the earth. Man did not reach this conclusion until the end of the 20th century. We find this statement plainly expressed in the Holy Qur'an in Surah Al-Nazi'at, the 79th chapter of the Qur'an according to the arrangement in the Mus'haf. The Quran reads, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا أَخْرَجَ مِنْهَا مَاءَهَا وَمَرْعَاهَا. To translate this, of course, the verses are speaking about the process of creation of heavens and earth. And one of these processes, Allah is telling us, and after that, He has expanded the earth. He has expanded the earth. أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها. And He has pushed out from within that earth both its water and its pasture. A Bedouin at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam would listen to these two verses and he would say, yes, I see springs of water coming out, gushing out in the desert. So what? Allah can bring water from within the rocks. And he would see the earth or the desert covered by a green blanket of vegetation once rain comes in enough quantity. So he understood the meaning of these two verses in that context.
Does this mean that the earth, the land, was created before the water?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. At least the water, our water,
Yeah.
Was
the
there,
water
but
of our earth.
Yeah.
But there may be other waters in the universe which we would not know of.
Yeah.
So this was the understanding at the time of revelation, that we see water gushing from springs or by digging a well, water is coming out from within the earth, and we see vegetation flourishing once rain falls. Nowadays, it has been proved that all the water on the surface of our planet was actually emanated from within the earth. So, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا أَخْرَجَ مِنْهَا. Allah has pushed out of the earth both its water and its pasture. One would wonder, who would have told Muhammad this, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, other than the Creator Himself? Who would have known this more than 14 centuries ago in the Arabian desert, an unlettered society? And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself was unlettered for a purpose. so that nobody can claim that he copied that book from others. Nobody knew this fact at the time of revelation. And say, أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها. Allah has gushed out of the earth both its water and its pasture.
With the word akhraja, gushing out,
Yes.
a
Yes,
force
pushed
must be
out.
present.
Yes.
A force must be present. What is this force?
You see, this force is the activity that is taking place in the zone of weakness. Because I said, because it's boiling, there are convection currents.
Okay.
And whenever these convection currents can find a safety valve to pass through these rifts, you see, water comes out and volcanicity comes out. So it has been decided that all the water we have on our planet was actually pushed out from within the earth.
But this means that the comets did not contribute at all.
No, did not contribute. And if it did contribute in the past, we don't know. We have no record
But
of that.
now, when comets come, it's a very small fraction.
You see, throughout the history of man, we have not witnessed a single comet hitting the earth. We have not witnessed that. We find meteorites, but comets, never. I personally don't know of any comet that has hit the earth.
It's only theories.
Not only theory, you see, secular people who do not believe in a creator, who do not believe in a system that's regulating everything in that universe. Whenever they see a comet approaching near the earth, there's a crisis. The comet will hit the earth. You see, we had a comet named Schumacher, and the whole of the world was really waiting for the end of this life as a result of the impact of this comet with the earth. And another comet a few years ago, it will hit the earth. It will destroy everything. But throughout history, we did not record a single comet hitting the earth, because comets have got their own orbits. They do not go out of these orbits, and they have to follow these orbits.
Then why did they imagine that they will hit the earth?
Because this was the only obvious source that carries ice, and of course they were imagining how how life will end, how life will come to an end. You see, they said, well, somebody from outer space can hit the earth and destroy it, because they want to exclude the work of the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyhow, it has been finally decided that all the water we are enjoying on the surface of our planet, in seas, in oceans, in rivers, in lakes, in ponds, in groundwater, in the atmosphere, as ice on the two poles and at the peaks of mountains, all this was gushed out from within the zone of weakness under the outer rocky layer of the earth. And I wonder, if I bring this to the notice of any sane person, and I ask him, if you claim that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has written the Qur'an, as many Westerners and Easterners claim, they say Muhammad was a genius sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he wrote the Qur'an. And on purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him unlettered, so that nobody can ever raise that claim. And nevertheless, people still raise it. He was a genius, and he wrote the book. I recall Michael Hart, a professor of nuclear physics, but he's a man interested in history. He wrote a wonderful book, The 100. And reviewing the history of humanity throughout the recorded history, he said, no man has influenced the history of man as Muhammad did. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he could not but put him number one. Nevertheless, he said he was a genius. He wrote the book, and he ruled that his community in such capacity.
He certainly was a genius, but he didn't write the book.
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But you see, his geniusness comes from his connection with the revelation.
Yes.
Not just really, he is the perfect human being, no doubt about that. He is the chosen one, really, from all the creation of humanity. He has got the utmost perfection a human being could have, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet his geniusness, not through himself, but through him being connected with a divine guidance,
Allah subhanahu
with
wa ta'ala.
Jibreel alayhi salam. So he said he's a genius, he wrote the book. But if I point out to a scientific fact like this, who would have known it 14 centuries ago, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who would have forced Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to indulge in such an obscure area, unless Allah knows in his eternal knowledge that time will come when scientists will discover this fact, and this simple verse can remain a living testimony on all human beings, of all colors, of all tongues, of all creeds, that the Qur'an is the word of the Creator in its divine purity, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the seal of that long chain of prophets and messengers sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the guidance of man.
Okay, we'll go for a short break and we'll
Okay.
continue after that. Thank you,
Inshallah.
Professor. Please be with us after the break.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to a new edition of Ask Huda.
I have two questions.
Please go ahead. You can read it in Arabic and you can also understand the meaning in your own language. The different tafsir and the interpretation of the meanings of the Quran are available in almost every language that exists on earth by the grace of Allah. The water of Zamzam is for whatever intention you drink it with. Salih from Egypt, his father passed away and he asked about how can he help him. Very good question.
Can we give a zakat to any of the dawah centers?
The ibadah or the act of worship is a part of the unity of worship. It has to be paid to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in accordance with the guidance of his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa
Welcome back, our dear viewers, and continuing our conversation with Professor Zaghloul. Professor Zaghloul, so before the break, you were telling us how genius is our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You see, I was mentioning the fact that these scientific notions in the glorious Qur'an are an address to the people of our time. They testify to the might, wisdom, and power of the Creator. They testify for his divine nature. They testify to his unity without parallels, partners, and similitudes. They testify for his power to annihilate everything he has created and resurrected, to testify to the correctness of the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the divine nature of this book, the Holy Quran.
Going back to the topic, sorry.
Yes.
Going back to the topic, when we look at the water gushing from the earth,
Yes,
for example, the well,
yes,
water gushes out
Yes.
in the well. For example, the Zamzam well.
yes.
And you said also the water also comes out as vapor through volcanic activities.
Yes.
Is there any other form that the water gushes from the earth?
You see, our wells are shallow wells, whatever deep they may be, compared to the zone of weakness. If you remember, I said the zone of weakness lies at a depth of more than 120 kilometers on land and around 60 to 65 kilometers under the sea. And no human power can get that water out except the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But our wells, whether they are artesian wells or they are drilled wells, they run for shallow depths, you see, that do not exceed 1 kilometer
But
in most
the
cases.
water inside of them, how are they formed?
Inside of what?
The underground water.
No, the groundwater, you see, the term underground is a wrong term.
Okay.
Because underground means at the core of the earth, you see. And our water is just in a zone of the outer rocky layer of the earth. So we call it groundwater, not underground water,
Okay.
although this is a common term. The groundwater comes from rain. And the Quran also spells this fact, that Allah sends down rain and Allah stores it for you in the ground, you see. And this again was not known until very recently. So all the groundwater comes from rain or lateral seepage from lakes, from rivers, or from any other source of, from ice, you see. You can get lateral seepage and saturation of the soil or part of the rock if it is porous enough and permeable enough with groundwater.
That leads me to a question, Doctor,
Yes.
here regarding the saltness of the water. For instance,
Regarding
the saltness of the water.
the saltness
that
of
we
the
have it in the ocean and in the sea. Then we have on the other side we have the rivers and the ponds.
Barakallah fiqh.
How
You see,
come?
actually, all the water of the earth was initially fresh.
Right.
But due to the water cycle around the earth, you see, rain falls down on rocks. It fragments rocks, breaks rocks down into soil.
Breaks rock.
Yes, water can break rock. You see, all the river valleys were actually cut down by water. All the deep gullies on the surface of our planet were physically cut down by water. You see, as we said earlier, you see, this soft, tender, how could I say it, liquid, this soft, tender liquid, which is the essence of life. If it moves, it can be much stronger than the edge of the sword.
In huge amounts, especially.
Yes. So this water, as it runs on the surface of the planet, it dissolves any soluble salt, and it carries it to the sea. And as the sun evaporates it, it leaves its salt behind, and repeats the same process. And that's why, in the early days of geology, one of the tools of calculating the age of the Earth was called the rate of increase of the salinity of oceanic waters method. You see, if you can calculate how much salt is carried to the seas and oceans every year, and then you calculate the total amount of salt,
Then you can know the age.
you can know the age of
Earth.
oceans.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
it's a fantastic
And
idea.
they did that, and it
They
worked.
did that, of course.
It worked.
It did not give the same precise age as radioactive minerals, but it gave an approximation
Right.
that our Earth is quite old. It's not as they were saying in the Old Testament, that, or calculated from the Old Testament, that it was created on the 14th of October at 9 o'clock on the 14th of October, 300 or 4,410 years. This is completely unscientific.
I want to take you back a little, Doctor.
Yes,
For you said that Allah stores the water for
Yes.
us in the land.
yes,
The oasis, for example, in the middle of a desert.
Yes.
This is rainwater.
yes.
What about the Zamzam well?
Zamzam is a unique case, which will come to it. Zamzam is a miracle. But let me first complete these two verses, and if we have time, inshallah, I'll comment on Zamzam. But Zamzam needs a special episode by itself.
Doctor, just one more question here for
Raise your voice a little
one
bit,
more
please.
question here regarding the Earth.
Yes,
Is that our planet that we call it the blue planet?
they call it the blue planet,
Yes,
yes.
because of
Due to
three-quarter?
the abundance of water.
Yes, 3/4. Is it more?
Yes, huge
What is the
quantity of
proportion?
water. They
Wow.
call
What
it
is
the blue planet,
three-quarters?
Yes.
or the watery planet.
Yes.
More than three-quarters of
More than,
3/4 of the planet is water.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Almost 71%
Okay.
of the
Almost
surface of the
71%.
earth is water.
And it's the source of all living
And
organisms.
strangely enough, our bodies are
The same
71%
proportions.
water
Subhanallah.
and the rest solids.
Subhanallah.
So
Because
more
we're
or
made
less
from land.
from
also.
earth, yes.
Yeah.
But I would like to fulfill these two verses before
continue,
time
please.
takes us.
Continue, please.
You see, أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها. Allah has pushed out of the earth both its water and its pasture. The Bedouins at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, yes, we see grass coming out from within the soil. And they understood it in that way. Nowadays, we have a better concept. It does not contradict this, but it adds to it. We understand that the second important element or chemical compound that comes out from volcanic vents is carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, its percentage in the atmosphere is less than 0.006%. Yet it's the essence of life.
Carbon
it's the
dioxide.
basics of the chain food on earth.
It's more important than oxygen.
Not more important, everything is important.
Yes.
But if you imagine that if we did not have this small percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we could have no vegetation.
Yeah.
And without vegetation, no animal life.
No
And
food,
losing both plants and animals, no human
no
existence.
nutrition.
And that's why we believe in the wisdom of creation. Everything has been created with great wisdom. If the percentage of carbon dioxide would slightly increase in the atmosphere, as is happening today through pollution, you see, it becomes absolutely dangerous for man. If the percentage of oxygen, which is essential for our life, increase a little bit, a matchstick would create
burn.
a big fire, you see, in the atmosphere, and so on. So everything has been created with great precision to testify to the knowledge and wisdom of the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nowadays we understand that carbon dioxide is the second important chemical compound that gushes out of volcanic vents, and gushing out in a fixed proportion. So much so that if the percentage of carbon dioxide increases naturally, it's fixed in the calcium carbonate at the bottoms of seas and oceans. It's consumed immediately to keep the balance. But if this percentage is disturbed by human pollution, man can take his risk and he can suffer by it.
Because it is his own doing.
Yes, his own deeds. So, أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها is a scientific fact that has only been proved by the end of the 20th century. And for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to explain this to us in such plain language, for the Quran to bring this fact to our knowledge, which was not achieved until the end of the 20th century, is a living testimony that the Quran cannot be the work of man, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to be always connected with heavens through Archangel Jibril, because he did not know that knowledge through his own observations, and nobody at his time knew that knowledge at all.
It is also amazing that we integrate the meanings with the simple understanding of the people in earlier ages and the sophisticated understanding of today.
Indeed.
And they're both correct.
As I said earlier, one of the most striking features of the Quran is that the Quranic verse comes in few words, and every generation can see a meaning in these few words, and these meanings integrate without the slightest contradiction.
This is opposite to science, because in science you
Oh, yes,
usually you remove the
you can
change.
destroy what came
Yes,
before you and
yes,
rebuild it again.
exactly.
Yes. The most amazing thing is the word dahaha. Dahaha in Arabic was differently interpreted by scholars. Some people said that in slang Arabic, ad-duhya means the egg. So they said, oh, how wonderful. The earth is not a perfect sphere. Actually, it's in an ellipse form. So it looks like an egg. So they said, dahaha means made it like an egg.
Oval shape.
Oval shaped, yes. But recently, we came to realize that the pure linguistic meaning of الدحو is المد والبسط والإخراج, يعني, which is a typical expression of a volcanic eruption. A typical expression. When a volcano erupts, it throws huge quantity of liquids, solids, and gases, you see. And this can build the crater of the volcano. Another eruption can build the crater more, and so on and so on, until you build a huge area of volcanic rocks. We only very, very recently came to realize the fact that in a certain phase of the history of our planet, it was completely covered by water. There was no land. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the bottom of this primordial ocean to erupt with volcanic eruptions. And these volcanic eruptions did build a sea mount, a chain of mountains at the bottom of this inundating ocean. The very first peak that came above water was the first piece of land. And as the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was the place of the Kaaba.
Subhanallah.
Because he has an authentic hadith that reads, كانت الكعبة خشعة على الماء فدحيت منها الأرض.
Subhanallah.
The Kaaba was a simple elevation above water, and from that point the whole land mass was created. Recent discoveries tell us that all the continental masses were actually initiated from a volcanic island, and this volcanic island started to increase, and by eruption increase in area until a single continent was created, known as the mother continent, or the mother of all continents, or Pangaea. This continent was split into the 7 known continents of the time. They started to drift away from each other to reach their current positions, and they are still drifting. And inshallah, we can continue with explaining this more and more in the coming episode, inshallah.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, dear viewers. Thank you, our guests. And till next episode, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.